Debt-Free in 30, where every week we take 30 minutes and get practical advice from industry experts about personal finance and living debt-free. Here's your host, Doug Hoyes.
Cars are great. They take you places, like your job, so for a lot of people, a car is essential. Cars are great, but they can also be the cause of significant financial problems. According to market research company J.D. Power, 72% of new vehicle loans taken out in Canada are now for 6 years or longer. 44% are for 7 years, and 8-year loans are now more than 10% of all new vehicle loans. The longer the loan, the more likely you'll have problems paying it back, and that's become an increasing problem for my clients. We're going to update it in 2019, but up until the end of 2017, our Joe Detter Hoyes Michaelis bankruptcy study shows that more than a third of people in Ontario who go bankrupt or file a consumer proposal have negative equity in their car. That means they owe more than the car is worth, and they can't afford to make the payments. As car loans become longer, that becomes an even greater problem. I can think of hundreds of people I've met over the years, often young men, who are paying up to half of their income for their car. They make $2,000 a month in their job, and they're paying $500 for a car loan and $300 a month for insurance and a couple $100 a month for gas and maintenance. So it's not hard to see how owning a car can lead to financial trouble. So what can you do to protect yourself? Should you only buy new cars or only buy really old used cars? What options should you get and which ones should you avoid? On today's show, we aren't going to focus on car loans and debt. Instead, we'll take a very practical look at how you can get the most bang for your car buck. So let's get started and meet my guest today. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, I'm Scott Marshall, and I am the Director of Training for Young Drivers of Canada, 30 years at Young Drivers. I'm also a road safety blogger, and for the first 3 seasons of Canada's Worst Driver, I was their head instructor and on-air judge.
Excellent. Canada's Worst Driver.
Yes.
So, and I remember the show. I mean, you had people and basically critiqued all the bad things they did driving.
Yes.
What were some of the things that stand out when you look back on that as to these are pretty obvious mistakes people make or mistakes people shouldn't be making?
Well, it goes from one end of the scale to the other. They were either overconfident and lack of ability, or underconfident and needing the ability of their passenger to help them drive. And over time, that we were hoping that they would change their behavior and their thought process, because really it's your brain that makes all the choices. It shouldn't be your passenger's brain. And
passengers can get you into a lot of trouble.
They do, and especially the passengers who think they know what they're doing. In reality, they don't.
Yeah, that's even worse.
Yes.
Now, you said you're a blogger. What's the address of your website? Where can people find that?
My blog is thesafedriver.ca.
Thesafedriver.ca. And we'll put links to that in the show notes so people can find it. Now, I've read a bunch of your blogs, and in one of them you talked about a phrase which I'd never heard of, target fixation. What is that? What are you talking about there?
Yeah, if you want to avoid something, you avoid looking at it. So when you're driving and you want to avoid going into a snowbank, then if you look at the snowbank, is where you look is where you go. It's like athletes do. Athletes has a target. They look at their target and they throw the ball to the target. You look at a snowbank and you go into the snowbank. So you look into the open space where you want the car to go and then steer to get there.
So that's the key then. Okay, so there you go. We're giving free driving tips here right there. Look right where you want to go, not where you're heading.
Yeah, that's right. Not what you're trying to avoid.
Exactly. Which is naturally what you'd be focused on. Okay, so let's get into the kind of money aspect of this here.
Sure.
So let's assume that I don't have a lot of money, which is the case for most of my clients. And, maybe I went through a bankruptcy or consumer proposal. I had to give up my expensive leased car, but I need a car to get to work. And we're recording this today in my office in Hamilton, up on the mountain. And this is a town where people drive cars. Yes, there's a bus that stops right outside here, but This is an area where cars are very prevalent. So, I need a car to get to work. My shift starts at 5 a.m. The buses don't start running till 6. I've got to have a car. It's got to be something reliable, but I can't go out and just be buying a brand new car all the time. So if you were advising someone in that situation,
Right.
what should they be looking for? Should they be looking for, you definitely got to buy a brand new car because it's got the best warranty and in the long run you save money? Or should you definitely be buying a 10-year-old car because they only cost $1,000 and you can't go wrong? What's your advice in that situation?
Let's go right in the middle of that. Buying a 3 or 4 year old vehicle, you have something very close to the most modern vehicle out there. In some cases, they're still part of a warranty, perhaps a drivetrain train warranty. Maybe not your basic warranty, but you're going to have that as far as your engine and transmission goes. But you have something that's more reliable. Getting into an older vehicle, the parts are older. They're more worn down. There's more kilometers out on that. And it's like a pair of running shoes. They're still comfortable, but they'll leak in the rain. And so you're going to have to get something that's newer, not necessarily new. And that's something that's reliable. It's going to cost you maybe, 60% of what a new vehicle would cost.
So you're talking a 3 or 4 year old car.
Yeah.
Because a new vehicle, the moment you drive it off the lot, you've lost, 10%, 20%, whatever it is.
Depreciation. That's correct.
So it drops pretty quickly.
It does.
So you would be targeting 3 to 4 years old.
Yep.
Because the price could be 60% of what the brand new vehicle is.
That's
it's
right.
still got a bunch of the bells and whistles.
It does.
It doesn't have the hand crank like we used to use.
Well, they might still have that, but the reality is that the every 6 months or every 3 months there are new safety features out on vehicles. We have roughly 25 sensors on our vehicles now. So these sensors help us with a backup camera, lane departure. ESC was the standard feature a few years ago in Canada, along with ABS brakes.
And what's ESC?
Electronic stability control. It helps slow down the car if you're about to take a corner too fast without you touching the brakes. So it'll do it automatically. Not that you want to try it to find out what it does, but you can check out my blog and it'll tell you what it does. But so the 3 and 4 year old vehicle will still have those. You don't have to get brand new to have that.
Gotcha. So you're getting the benefit. And like you say, the drivetrain warranty or something, well, it may be a 5-year warranty or X number of kilometers or something like that. So you're getting the best of both worlds. Okay, and that makes sense then. So that's a value proposition there. Are there any, you just mentioned a bunch of them,
Right.
options. Are there any options that are either, really good to have on a car that definitely make it safer, or that, you're paying a lot of money for something that, it's kind of like buying a house. Well, if you put in a pool, you never get your money out of it, they say, right? Is there anything in the car world that's similar to that?
Because there's been a lot of features that are standard now, like as I mentioned, anti-lock brakes, electronic stability control, all the airbags have been around for forever, or so it seems in many people's lives. There's not a lot that you have to worry about needing because they're already standard feature. But if you have a backup camera, they're helpful in a tight spot. They're not necessarily something you have to have, but they are helpful. Things like that.
So that would be an example of something. Well, if you've got a choice,
That's right. Yeah.
Particularly paying a few extra bucks to get a vehicle with a backup
That's
camera,
right.
you're in better shape.
Fog lights too. People don't think about that, but if you're in that type of an area where it's foggy, and around here it is, then having fog lights on a vehicle is a perk. Allows you to see the road a little better. I'm all about the safety part, but if you can save a few bucks and be safe, let's do both.
It's even better.
Yeah.
So let's say I take your advice and I'm going to I want to target a 3 or 4 year old car.
Yeah.
Where should I buy it then? Should I go to a used car lot? Should I go to Kijiji or find it online? Where would you be sending me?
The newer and the upscale lots tend to have better vehicles, lower mileage, and which again means that it could very well last you longer. There are some lots that will go to the wholesaler, get the vehicles, and there could be something seriously wrong with it. So I would go to a reputable place. You can go to the online magazines such as Auto Trader. Dealers will advertise on Kijiji as well. So you could check both those places, and there's a few other websites that you can search out. But once you have an idea about what's out there and what your budget is, go out and test drive a bunch. Find out what works for you. Just test driving one vehicle, let's say a Honda Civic, Doesn't mean that, and that one didn't drive so well. It doesn't necessarily mean all Honda Civics are like that. Go and test drive a couple others. Maybe it was just that one that didn't perform as well as you'd like.
Well, and we all have different body types. So if you're short, maybe you want a car that rides higher up. If you're really tall, maybe that little tiny compact isn't going to work for you. So I agree. Getting in them, how else can you know?
That's right. And part of your decision making is also what can you afford, but also about the fuel. Check with the insurance company too. Find out, okay, if I bought this vehicle, what would my insurance be?
That's an excellent point, because especially if you're younger, the insurance can be costing you many hundreds of dollars a month.
That's right.
If you buy this kind of car versus that kind of car, and you can save $100 a month in insurance, well, that's huge.
It is.
That's huge.
$100 a month it can go a long way on a tight budget. And it's something that, decide, is it, what kind of a safety rating does the vehicle have? SUVs tend to have a little higher safety rating, so you may want to consider that. And a lot of them now are more economical to operate than they were a number of years ago.
So we're recording this in January 2019, the middle of a Canadian winter.
Yes.
Snow tires. What are your thoughts on snow tires? And so I'm asking the question from 2 points of view: money and safety.
Okay.
So I think we all kind of agree that, if you're on slippery conditions, snowy conditions, whatever, snow tires are better than non-snow tires. And you can tell me if that's true or not. What about from a money point of view? Are snow tires a good investment or not from a money point of view?
From a money point of view, they very well can be, if you are keeping the vehicle for a few years. So if you keep the vehicle for 3 or 4 years, that's 3 or 4 winters you're going to have them with. And while your winter tires, and they're winter tires versus snow tires. I'll just quick pause.
So it's not a snow
season,
tire.
Not necessarily the elements. So the cold weather affects the all-season tires. They become very hard, like a rock, when the temperature drops to 7 Celsius. It's not even minus, but down to 7. So having the winter tires on for 5 or 6 months during the cold weather, you're actually saving your all-season tires, so they're going to last you extra 3 or 4 years.
So if I'm going to have my car for the next 4 or 5 years, then it's kind of a no-brainer.
It is. And you can go to used tire places and get some winter rims for economical cost. So then knowing someone and changing your tires yourself, it doesn't cost you anything to switch your tires over.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I do, and I don't change them myself because I'm an accountant. You know what? I'm sure I could learn. And when I was a kid, we had the ramps and the jacks and the things to change our own oil and everything. But I find going to the place and paying the guy money makes the most sense. But I do have the steel rims.
Right.
I keep my snow tires on those, so swapping them out is no big deal. So, okay, so if I'm keeping my car for an extended period of time, obviously if you switch cars every year and switch models, well, then the old snow tires aren't going to fit on the new one potentially. But if you're sticking with the same model, and I've had the same model of car for, 10 years, so the snow tires can keep going. So, and from a safety point of view, and again, I realize I just said the wrong thing again, that they're not snow tires, they're winter tires because it's a season. There's no doubt that they are safer in the winter than all seasons.
They are. So I'll even bring it back to the economical side of it. You've got some slippery conditions. You got some snow. You got some deep snow, and you're stuck. And you're going to get back and forth, and you're pressing the gas. You're wasting this fuel to get out of some snow drifts, where winter tires you can just drive out. I was parked in the parking lot, dug out my car, a shovel I had in the back of the car, drove out. Not a problem. Winter tires on. Person up the laneway, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. He used a lot more gas than I did. So now each time it snows, do I want to get stuck and use up fuel, or do I just drive out?
And I guess that's not easy on the engine either when you're spinning your tires and all the rest of it.
Yeah, it's not a good technique to get out anyway.
It's probably not great. So
no, it's not.
Okay, so winter tires probably a good investment.
Yeah.
Another investment I've always made is I'm a member of the Auto Club, CAA. And I've been a member of that since I was like 16 years old. And I think my dad got me into it. And his thought was, well, because back in those days, I was driving 10, 15-year-old cars. So we knew they were going to break down. We knew there was going to be a problem. So you need someone to come and get you. Well, they've got a tow truck. I don't. From a financial point of view, is that a good strategy or is that a waste of money?
No, it is a good strategy for the cost, which I think is like $80 And then if you have a family member, you could be an associate member, which is like $45, $50. So think about what a tow is going to cost you. One tow, one stranded night where your car wouldn't start, one dead battery, one stuck in a snowbank. Just one is going to cost you more than your membership. So it's a good thing to have. There are some vehicles that are still out there that the automaker allows. They have the roadside assistance that comes with the vehicle. Depends again on how old the vehicle is.
Yeah, so if you're buying a brand new vehicle, that may already be included. Not a big deal.
But if it's a used vehicle of 4 years old, what's still left on it, if there is anything at all? And having an Auto Club membership or a very handy parent, either one comes in handy.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly what I've done. And when my son started driving, you can put him on as a supplemental. So you're right; it doesn't cost. It's certainly not double the cost to put a second person on.
No.
So it kind of makes sense. Now, at the start of the show, I said that it's becoming more and more common to have longer and longer loans, 6 years, 7 years, 8 year loans. That sounds crazy to me, because in my experience, your typical car doesn't last for 8 years. Am I wrong? Are cars lasting longer? Is an 8 year loan actually not a bad thing? Or is it much more likely that you're going to be turning the car over more frequently than that?
Depending on what you use your vehicle for, if it's your typical get to and from work and the additional pleasure use, you're probably putting 20 to 25,000 K on a year. Yeah, your car's going to last you a while. It really will. They're built better now. So a 7 year, 8 year loan, a lot of it is so that people can afford it, because cars
the entire reason. Yeah,
they're so expensive now, which comes back to 3-4 year old car. It's could be 60% of the cost of a brand new one, so it's more affordable. But cars do last, and one of the pluses, and as a driving instructor, if we had a chance to own our vehicle for a year after it was paid, then that's extra, because we put a lot of kilometers on our vehicles, and but we want something reliable. We don't want to have to cancel lessons because our car's in the shop.
So the cars that you've got at Young Drivers of Canada, what kind of mileage, what kind of age is it when you then get rid of them and get another one?
Well, we probably generally, for the most part, won't keep anything past 4 or 5 years. We're putting 50,000 K a year, so more than twice as much as the average driver. And it's hard kilometers, because it's someone who's just learning.
Yeah.
So the brakes are a little, get a little worn, and the tires don't last as long as years wise. They'll probably last us 2 years.
But you're just replacing the brakes, replacing the tires.
That's right.
And keeping the car. So the car gets to 250,000, and okay, well then that's probably when we're turning it over. But by that point, it might have had a couple of sets of tires, 3 sets of brakes, whatever.
That's right. But to the average driver who's commuting to work and taking their family out and vacationing, you could see your car lasting you a good 10 years. But part of that is preventive maintenance.
Right. Are you spending the money then to do all those things that we just talked about?
That's right.
And the problem I see people getting into is, I don't want to keep the car for 10 years, or there's all these new bells and whistles, or I just had another kid, so now I need a van. I can't be driving the sports car anymore. So the reason that I said at the start that a third of our clients end up having a shortfall on their vehicle when they come in to see us is because they've got a 5-year loan. They keep the car for 3 years, and then they want to switch to a different vehicle. There's a shortfall, and the car place says, no problem, we'll take that shortfall and roll it into your new vehicle. So now I bought a $30,000 vehicle, but I've got a $35,000 loan on it, and because I had to roll in what was there from before, and I keep that vehicle for 3 years, and now I want to roll it into something else. Well, now I've got a $6,000 or $7,000 shortfall that I'm rolling. At some point, you get to the point where you've got a $20,000 loan on a $6,000 vehicle. And when people come in to see me, I say, well, here's your choice. You can keep the vehicle and go bankrupt, but you're going to have to keep paying the $20,000 loan for a $6,000 vehicle. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Maybe you'd be better off to say, okay, here you go, car lender. Here's the keys. Take the vehicle. And then you don't have the vehicle anymore, but that shortfall can then get included in your bankruptcy or proposal. That's the big problem with the long loans. if you're not going to keep the vehicle for that length of time. So I guess that's kind of the key. How long are you really going to keep it for?
Yeah, exactly. And I know that my older son wanted to buy a vehicle, and he decided he wanted to pay cash. So he was working extra hours.
I like him already.
Yes. He was working extra hours, worked a long time to get the money, and I went out and helped him. And the thing is that where he was working at the time, he could not afford a monthly payment. He had to have zero money per month out, other than the insurance and the maintenance. And so now he wants to get a truck. So, which is
costs more
on fuel, more maintenance, possibly more insurance, but that has not been determined. And then you have your monthly payment. So part of it is it's wants versus needs.
Yep.
And right now he has a reliable vehicle, gets him to work, gets him home, gets him to come and visit, and so forth. And that, I think, is important, that you have to kind of decide, well, I'd like to have that. There's lots of things I'd like.
Yep, sure.
But it's, what do I need? And he got himself a vehicle that was reliable, a little older than the 4-year, but it fit within his budget, and it's all good. Now, an added thing that people can also do if it doesn't have much of the warranty is you can buy an extended warranty.
And is that a good deal, or you end up paying a lot more than what you're actually getting?
It's insurance. You know, I have home insurance in case there's a fire. I haven't had a fire, but it's nice to know that I have it.
Yeah, because a fire is catastrophic. You end up having to spend $500,000 while spending the money each month is a much better deal.
Exactly, or whether or not you have a break-in and these types of things, and your car insurance type of thing. It's insurance. It's insurance for the maintenance of your vehicle, and you just have to put that into your budget. So if it's going to cost you, $80 a month for this extended warranty, then it's $80 a month that you put into your budget. Yeah,
and I guess you got to do the math and figure out, okay, so over the next 2 or 3 years, what is likely to go wrong with my car? Yeah. And if it's, brakes, tires, you can estimate what those costs are pretty accurately. And it's probably not, an extended warranty probably doesn't cover that anyways. But if the engine goes, okay, that costs more money.
Yeah.
And is it worth it then to have? So I guess you got to fully understand what the warranty actually covers and what it doesn't cover, and then decide for yourself. If you're driving a $2,000 car, well, I guess when it breaks, I throw it out and I get another one, kind of a thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot of long-term planning. Mm-hmm. Don't think of today, think of next week.
Now, you mentioned long-term planning. So you've been in your world for 30 years.
Yeah.
Makes you about as old as I am, I guess. So we're both 25 years old. So do you notice, this has nothing to do with money, I'm just curious here.
Yeah, okay.
Do you notice a difference between drivers today and drivers from 20, 30 years ago? And maybe even specifically the clients you've got at Young Drivers of Canada, the people you're training. Are they different, or is it really just the same? A driver's a driver?
In generally speaking, there's a bit of a difference. A lot of safety features on our vehicles. Mm-hmm. A lot of advancements. Drivers are relying on those advancements to help them drive, which is a mistake.
Yeah.
For example, you have a blind spot indicator on your car. It flashes if there's someone in your blind spot, so you don't bother checking.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't flash, you just move over. There's snow on the sensor. There's ice. There's mud.
Yeah.
There's grime.
There's a car there.
And crashes occur. The drivers are still out there. In Ontario, there's roughly 100,000 new drivers every year.
Wow.
And so our roads are getting clogged more and more now than when I started 30 years ago at Young Drivers. So we have to share. There's still the aggressive drivers. They were always there. Mm-hmm. The old cars from the 80s when I started at Young Drivers had the steel bumpers that you hit the bumper and something goes wrong with your car. Yeah, nothing happens.
Yeah.
That's not the case now. Everything is so cosmetic. You look at a vehicle after a collision and think, okay, maybe $1,500, $2,000 damage. No, it's $9,000.
Yeah.
Because there's so much underneath the vehicle that your deductible, which people have to remember that you have to live with that deductible.
Yeah, you don't just get a hammer and bang out the dent from the fender. You need a whole new front end.
That's right.
What's happened.
And there's so much electronics behind the shell of the vehicle. You're driving a computer now.
Yeah.
And people forget that.
Well, and that's interesting what you say about the safety features. It makes me think of hockey. You know, back when, you know, you and I were born, nobody wore a helmet when they played hockey. And yet you never heard stories about hockey players suffering from concussions. I mean, obviously they did. But when I was running you into the boards, I was a little more careful because I knew I would kill you.
Yeah.
So, okay, Gordie Howe had pretty good elbows. It's not like he was the cleanest player in the world, but he wasn't running at people's heads. Well, now they're wearing all this body armor. Yeah. I don't have to be as safe. And I guess it's the same with the cars. I got all these safety features. And let's face it, cars are going to be driving themselves if they aren't already, right?
Yeah.
So why do I even have to pay attention?
Well, yeah. I mean, and now the part of the electronics are the automatic emergency braking. Our vehicles are semi-autonomous now that allow us to do things. There's even the parking. I did a couple of videos with the one with the Toronto Maple Leafs and one with the Raptors, where they had park assist, and we didn't tell the other participant. So we're doing Leo Komarov is doing a parallel park without touching the steering wheel. And Matt Martin's in the back seat, not knowing that this vehicle could do that.
Yeah.
So it's the car can park on itself. So why can't it do other things by itself? And it will eventually. But we just have to remember that we're the one in control. If something goes wrong, you have to be ready to touch that brake. You have to be ready to steer. You still have to look where you want the car to go. You're still the captain of the ship.
And that's pretty crucial. So to end it then, it sounds to me like there's a pretty big correlation between driving safely and saving money.
Yeah, there is. If you drive safely, gentle acceleration, you're saving fuel. Easing off the gas early for a red light, you're saving fuel, you're saving brake wear. That saves you money on your maintenance. That saves you money on your fuel. And if you're looking out for the other guy, you're not colliding. You're saving your deductible. You're saving your vehicle. You're saving your pocketbook.
Excellent. Well, so being a safe driver can save you a ton of money potentially.
Absolutely.
Which I never really kind of put it in those terms before, but that kind of makes obvious sense. So, final question: what is your overall advice then? And maybe you've already hit it all, but if you're talking to, you know, your son when he first started driving, or any other of the 100,000 new drivers, or more likely someone like me who's been driving for, I think I got my license 38 years ago, 2 days ago. Because it was,
okay.
if my math is correct there, we'd have to do the math. I might be a year or two off, but we're recording this in early January, and I know for a fact I got my license on January 2nd.
I got mine January 7th.
Well, there you go. So we're coming up on your anniversary too then.
Yes.
And I know that because I was, 16 and a half, and my dad said, okay, you're the oldest kid. I got to get you driving so you can schlep all your siblings around. Yeah. And I didn't have an appointment or anything, but it was a snowstorm that day. So everybody else had canceled their appointment. So we were able to just walk right in, and they couldn't fail me because nobody could see the road. There were no lines. There was snow everywhere. So it worked out fantastically. So what advice then would you be giving someone who is either a new driver or someone like me who's been driving for so long that I assume I know everything I'm doing, and then probably have a whole lot of bad habits that are not safe? What are some of the obvious things that maybe I should be thinking about to keep myself out of trouble?
Despite what you do for a living, driving is your job. If you have an appointment, you have a meeting, you have something on your mind relating to work, relating to home, it has to go on the passenger seat, and you focus on your driving. We have distracted driving laws that just took place, and distracted driving laws in Canada and Ontario specifically are to do with electronics. But it's not just electronics. It's your mind. If your mind is elsewhere, your mind is not on driving.
That's the biggest distraction of all.
It is. We are our own worst enemy because we have so much. We live in a busy society. Our lives are busy. My life is busy. Even though my kids are getting older, it's still a busy life. But when I get behind the wheel, that's my job. Not because I'm an instructor, but because what if the person that's next to me is daydreaming and they start drifting out of their lane? I need to see that. I need to honk the horn to warn them or slow down to make sure they don't hit me. I need to know that the driver behind is too close, maybe change lanes to get rid of them. Maybe they're anxious, maybe they're in a hurry. Driving is my job, and I need to remember that. And that'll save me, my passengers, my bank account, my car, you name it.
Excellent. Well, I think that's fantastic advice and a great way to end it. Driving is your job, and it's not just you got to worry about. In fact, it's everybody else you got to worry about as well.
Absolutely.
Scott, thanks very much for being here today.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. That is Scott Marshall, and I'm going to put links in the show notes to everything we've talked about. We'll have full show notes, including a full transcript and links to Scott's website over at hoyes.com. That's HOYES.com. And you can watch the video of all of our shows here on the Debt Free in 30 channel on YouTube. And you can get the audio podcast on all podcasting apps, so please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for listening. Until next week, I'm Doug Hoyes. That was Debt Free in 30.